A silent camel caravan moves through a moonlit desert, carrying more than just cargo. For centuries, Ottoman merchants were the master architects of a commercial empire spanning 3 continents. They traded in objects of everyday life and substances of immense power, weaving a network that turned the empire into an economic superpower. By the end of this journey, you will uncover the full, surprising list of goods that fueled this legendary civilization and learn the hidden secrets locked within their merchant chests. What was the true source of their immense wealth? And what mysterious items passed through their hands that history books often overlook? What single product do you believe was the most vital to their enduring power? That caravan did not move in a vacuum, but along arteries of commerce meticulously built and fiercely protected. To truly grasp what was traded, you must first see the stage upon which this grand market was set. The legendary Silk Road was the empire's eastern lifeline, a web of overland trails bringing the luxuries of Asia right to its doorstep. But the Ottomans were not just passive recipients. They became its new masters, controlling the vital choke points and ensuring that every bolt of silk or chest of spices paid a toll as it passed through their lands. The heart of this entire system, the great pumping station where all routes met, was the city of Constantinople. After its conquest, it was reborn as Istanbul, a dazzling capital strategically perched between 2 continents and 2 seas. This was not just a political center. It was the world's greatest warehouse, a marketplace where a merchant could hear a dozen languages in a single afternoon and find goods from every corner of the known world. To manage this chaotic, thriving global exchange, the sultans created a powerful legal tool known as the ahadname. These were the capitulations, formal treaties granting European merchants from places like Venice and France special privileges. They promised safe passage, fixed low customs duties, and legal protections. It was a brilliant strategic move. By inviting the world in with favorable terms, the Ottomans did not weaken their economy. They supercharged it, transforming their domain into the undisputed center of a new, interconnected world economy, setting the stage for a trade list that would defy all expectations. The air in Istanbul's Grand Bazaar was thick with an aroma more valuable than gold. This was the scent of empire, carried on sacks of peppercorns and bundles of cinnamon bark. Spices were the undisputed crown jewels of Ottoman commerce, and their trade routes were the empire's financial arteries. Think of pepper not as a simple kitchen seasoning, but as a substance that could buy a man's loyalty or ransom a city. A single sack of black peppercorns was a portable fortune, a form of currency that held its value across continents. Cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg were equally precious, arriving from the distant Moluccas, islands so remote they were known as the Spice Islands. But why were these dried seeds and barks worth such immense sums? Their value went far beyond flavor. In a world without refrigeration, pepper was a powerful preservative, essential for keeping meat edible through long winters and sea voyages. Cloves were a medieval anesthetic, used to numb the pain of toothaches. Cinnamon was a key ingredient in medicinal syrups and perfumes. To control the spice trade was to control life itself, from the dinner plate to the apothecary's shelf. The Ottomans did not grow these spices, but they masterfully controlled their journey. Ships from India and the East Indies would brave the monsoon winds, their hulls packed with spice, heading for 2 crucial gateways, the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. Ottoman officials waited at ports like Aden and Basra, ready to tax every ounce that passed through. By commanding these maritime choke points, The empire ensured that the wealth of the entire Eastern world flowed directly into its treasury. The spice trade was not just a business. It was a form of geopolitical dominance, a silent war fought with ledgers and customs houses that made the Sultan richer than any mine of precious metal. But the most intoxicating aroma in the bazaar was not a spice at all. It was the rich, dark scent of roasted coffee beans, a commodity that would brew a social revolution. This was the empire's true black gold, a treasure whose value was measured not just in coin, but in its power to shape society. The story begins in the highlands of Yemen, where the first cultivated coffee beans were grown. Ottoman merchants, always searching for the next great source of wealth, recognized its potential immediately. They established a tight, state-controlled monopoly, ensuring that every precious bean shipped from the port of Mocha passed through their hands. The journey was long and arduous, across the Red Sea and up to the docks of Istanbul, but the reward was immense. Yet the real magic happened not on the trade routes, but in the city's bustling streets. For the first time in history, coffee was not just a drink. It became an experience. Enterprising merchants opened the world's first coffee houses, creating an entirely new kind of public space. Inside these vibrant establishments, known as caravan's, the social order was temporarily suspended. Men from all walks of life, from a humble shoemaker to a wealthy scribe, could sit together on plush cushions. They would sip the thick, potent brew from small ceramic cups, engaging in hours of conversation that flowed as freely as the coffee itself. Here, news and gossip were exchanged, poetry was recited, political debates simmered, and business deals were struck. The government watched these new hubs of public opinion with a mixture of fascination and fear, occasionally trying to ban them. But the culture of coffee was simply too powerful to suppress. It had become the lifeblood of the city, a daily ritual that connected the empire, one cup at a time. While coffeehouses buzzed with conversation, the true luxury of the empire was worn on its back. Silk was the ultimate symbol of status and power, a shimmering fabric that wove together the entire Ottoman economy. The city of Bursa, nestled at the foot of a great mountain, was the undisputed heart of this industry, so famous it was known across the world as the Silk City. Here, the air hummed with the sound of thousands of looms, transforming raw, tangled threads into breathtaking works of art. But the Ottomans held a brilliant strategic advantage. They did not produce the raw silk themselves, at least not in the quantities they needed. The finest raw silk came from their rival to the east, Persia. Ottoman merchants, through a combination of trade agreements and sheer commercial pressure, secured a near constant flow of this precious raw material. Think of Bursa as the empire's great silk refinery. Persian silk would arrive in bulky bales, and skilled Ottoman artisans would work their magic. They wove it into heavy brocades intricately patterned with gold and silver thread, into plush velvets that felt like liquid, and into delicate fabrics that shimmered in the light. This was value-added trade on a grand scale. A bale of raw silk was valuable, but a bolt of finished Bursa brocade was worth a fortune. These textiles became objects of obsession for European royalty and nobility, who craved the exotic luxury that only the Ottoman world could provide. The wealth generated was staggering, funding imperial palaces and armies. The silk trade was a masterclass in economic strategy, proving that controlling the means of creation was just as powerful as controlling the source of the raw material. Beneath the shimmering silks and heady aromas of spice lay a trade in something far more fundamental, the very stuff of life itself. While luxuries built the empire's legend, It was the humble trade in grains and foodstuffs that truly built its body, feeding millions and holding the entire structure together. The most crucial of all was wheat, and the empire's breadbasket was the fertile Nile delta of Egypt. Every year, vast fleets of ships were loaded with this golden harvest, their holds packed not with treasures for the rich, but with sustenance for the masses. Their destination was the insatiable metropolis of Istanbul, a city of over 500,000 people that could not possibly feed itself from its own surrounding lands. Without this constant, life-giving flow of Egyptian grain, the capital would have starved within months. This was not a simple free market operation. The state understood that controlling the food supply was the ultimate key to political power. They imposed a system of heavy regulation, dictating prices, managing stockpiles in massive granaries, and strictly monitoring the merchants who were granted licenses to participate. A sudden spike in the price of bread could spark riots that threatened the throne itself. So the grain trade became a powerful tool of control. By ensuring a steady, affordable supply of bread, the Sultan bought the loyalty of the urban population. It was a silent contract, a daily reminder that the empire's strength ensured their survival. Alongside wheat, other staples like rice from the river valleys of Anatolia, hearty lentils, and vast quantities of olives and olive oil from the Aegean coast formed the backbone of this system. This was the empire's true, unsung economy, a relentless logistical feat that turned the simple act of eating into a profound exercise in statecraft. The grain that filled the stomachs of the empire was paid for with the one substance that commanded universal respect: solid gold. While food sustained the people, it was the relentless flow of precious metals that fueled the empire's financial heart. From the sun-baked mines of Sudan and Ethiopia in Africa came a steady stream of gold dust and nuggets, carried north by caravan along ancient desert routes. Simultaneously, from the rugged highlands of the Balkans, another treasure emerged: silver. This was not just a trade in luxury, but a trade in power itself. The state needed a reliable, standardized currency to pay its vast army of soldiers and bureaucrats, and to grease the wheels of commerce across 3 continents. The solution was the Ottoman silver coin, the axe. Mints in cities like Istanbul worked ceaselessly, hammering these small, recognizable coins out of Balkan silver, creating a monetary system that unified the empire's sprawling economy. But the ultimate expression of this metallic wealth was reserved for the Topkapi Palace. Here, gold was not merely stored, it was performed. Master artisans transformed African gold into breathtaking objects. Intricate filigree work on the Sultan's ceremonial armor, delicate inlay on his throne, and vast decorative panels that covered the palace walls. This was joined by a dazzling array of gems: deep red rubies from the Indian subcontinent and vibrant green emeralds from Egypt, all set into magnificent turban ornaments and jeweled daggers. This spectacular display was far more than mere decoration. It was a deliberate and powerful message, a physical manifestation of the Sultan's bottomless treasury, proving that his financial might was as unshakable as the mountains that provided his silver. Yet this river of gold and grain was shadowed by a trade in human lives, a dark current flowing through the very heart of the empire's prosperity. Within the sprawling Grand Bazaar, alongside the stalls of spices and silks, stood a separate summer market, its function as brutally straightforward as any other. Here, human beings were inspected, priced, and sold as property. The sources of this human cargo were vast and systematic. From the Caucasus Mountains came Circassian women and boys, often sought for their distinct features. From the steppes north of the Black Sea, In regions like modern-day Ukraine and southern Russia, came a steady supply of Slavic peoples, captured in raids or through tribute. And from deep in Africa, particularly the Sudan and Ethiopia, came men and women transported across the Sahara. Their roles within Ottoman society were sharply divided, a stark reflection of their perceived value and purpose. The most famous path was that of the Devshirme, the child levy, where Christian boys from the Balkans were conscripted, converted to Islam, and trained to become the empire's most elite soldiers, the Janissaries. For these few, slavery could paradoxically become a path to immense power and prestige. For the vast majority, however, such upward mobility was a distant dream. Young women were often purchased as domestic servants or concubines for wealthy households, their lives confined to the private sphere of the harem. Men who did not become soldiers could be destined for backbreaking manual labor on vast agricultural estates, or as galley slaves powering the Ottoman navy. The market in Istanbul was the central nervous system of this entire human network. A potential buyer would examine a person's teeth, test their muscles for strength, and assess their demeanor, all to determine a price. This was commerce stripped of all pretense, where a human life was reduced to its utility. It stands as a chilling reminder that the empire's dazzling economic engine was, in part, powered by a profound and enduring human cost. While human lives were traded in the markets, another kind of living commodity moved with purpose, its value measured in speed and stamina. The Arabian horse was a creature of legend, a living, breathing weapon system that gave the Ottoman cavalry its lightning strike. These were not ordinary horses. Bred in the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula and Egypt, they possessed almost supernatural endurance, able to cover vast distances on minimal water and outpace any European breed. For the Sipahi, the elite cavalrymen who formed the backbone of the Ottoman army, their horse was an extension of themselves. A single well-bred Arabian could cost a small fortune, its price reflecting its critical role in the empire's military dominance. The trade routes for these animals were matters of state security, with specialized merchants overseeing their careful transport from breeding grounds to military districts. But the empire's reliance on animals extended far beyond the battlefield. The same caravans that carried silk and spices were powered by the resilient camel, the ship of the desert. Thousands of these creatures were bred and traded for their ability to traverse arid landscapes that would break a horse or an ox. Their soft, durable hair was also woven into tents and robes, making them a mobile resource. And on a more mundane but equally vital level, the trade in sheep was a constant, bustling enterprise. Vast flocks were driven to markets across Anatolia and the Balkans, providing the wool that clothed the common people and the meat that fed them. This trade in livestock was the unsung engine of both war and peace, a reminder that the empire's power ran on four legs as much as it did on gold and grain. These powerful horses and camels, however, could not sail the seas. To command the waves, the empire needed to build, and to build, it needed forests. The strength of the mighty Ottoman navy was forged not in its shipyards, but in the dense, old-growth woodlands clinging to the slopes of the Black Sea. This region provided a seemingly endless supply of towering oak, resilient elm, and supple beech, the perfect raw materials for constructing everything from a massive warship's hull to its soaring masts. The quality of this timber was non-negotiable. A ship built from inferior wood was a death trap, liable to splinter under cannon fire or simply fall apart in a fierce Mediterranean storm. Controlling the Black Sea's timber reserves was as crucial a military objective as capturing any fortress, for it granted the empire the power to launch and maintain a fleet that could project its will across the entire inland sea. But a ship is more than just its wooden skeleton. Imagine the chaotic, tar-scented atmosphere of the imperial shipyard in Istanbul, the Golden Horn. Here, other vital commodities were constantly in demand. Great coils of rope, thick as a man's arm, were woven from sturdy hemp, a plant cultivated across the empire for its tough, fibrous stalks. Without these immensely strong ropes, a ship's sails were useless, its rigging powerless. And then there was pitch, a dark, sticky substance derived from pine resin. This was the empire's nautical lifeblood, heated in vast cauldrons and slathered onto the hull of every vessel. It sealed the seams between planks, creating a watertight shell that kept the ocean out and the ship afloat. The trade in these unsung materials, hemp and pitch, was a logistical triumph operating in the background. It connected distant forests and farms directly to the bustling dockyards, ensuring that the Sultan's galleys were not only built, but remained battle-ready. This entire network, from loggers to rope makers, was a silent, floating fortress, its strength drawn directly from the land. Even the most resilient rope and the strongest timber eventually wear down, but one commodity only grew more valuable with age and use. The scent of oak bark and drying hides hung heavy over entire districts of Ottoman cities, a testament to a different kind of alchemy. This was the world of leather, an industry that transformed raw animal skins into objects of incredible durability and beauty, coveted from the palaces of Europe to the markets of India. The process began in chaotic, open-air tanneries, where workers, known as dabag, performed a centuries-old craft. They would first soak the stiff, untreated hides in lime pits to remove hair and flesh, then transfer them to vast vats filled with a potent, natural brew of crushed oak gallnuts and water. This tannin-rich solution worked for months, sometimes years, to slowly convert the perishable skin into a stable, rot-resistant material. The finest result of this painstaking process was a product known across the globe as Morocco leather. Surprisingly, it did not originate in Morocco, but was the signature product of Ottoman artisans, particularly in cities like Istanbul and Anatolian centers. They treated the tanned leather with a final, secretive step, polishing it with a smooth stone to achieve a distinctive, pebbled texture, and then dyeing it vibrant shades of red, yellow, and green using root-based dyes. This finished leather was supple, fragrant, and remarkably durable. Its primary destiny was bookbinding for the wealthy elite of Europe. A scholar's prized volume or a king's personal ledger was often sheathed in this luxurious Ottoman leather, a quiet symbol of status that protected knowledge for centuries. But the uses did not stop there. Ottoman craftsmen also fashioned it into elegant slippers, intricate horse saddles for the cavalry, and durable bags for merchants. This was value creation in its purest form. A simple animal hide, through skilled labor and specialized knowledge, became a high-value export that generated immense wealth, proving that the empire's economic genius lay not just in moving goods, but in mastering the art of their transformation. The transformation of clay and mineral into radiant art was another Ottoman miracle. While leather was prized for its durability, the empire's ceramics were celebrated for their sheer beauty, a beauty so luminous it seemed to capture light itself. The most famous of all came from the small town of Iznik, which became a legendary hub of artistic production. Here, artisans perfected a secret recipe, mixing local quartz with a special clay to create a brilliant white base, a perfect canvas for their intricate designs. The most iconic patterns featured a vibrant coral red. A color so difficult to achieve it was a closely guarded state secret, and a brilliant cobalt blue, often swirling with tulips, carnations, and elegant arabesque vines. These were not mere decorations. They were visual poetry, a language of flowers and geometry that adorned the walls of the empire's greatest monuments. The Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul, for instance, is sheathed in thousands of these tiles, their surfaces glistening in the filtered light, creating an atmosphere of divine tranquility. But this art was not confined to sacred spaces. The Ottomans understood that beauty could be a powerful export. Wealthy European nobles who could not import an entire mosque eagerly purchased Iznik pottery as luxury tableware. A single Iznik dish, painted with its distinctive floral motifs, became a status symbol on a Venetian merchant's sideboard or in a French aristocrat's collection. It was a piece of the Ottoman aesthetic world, a tangible slice of its sophistication that could be held in one's hands. This trade in ceramics was a brilliant double victory. It glorified the empire's own architecture while simultaneously broadcasting its unparalleled artistic prowess to the world, proving that cultural influence could be as potent a form of power as any military campaign. The same hands that crafted delicate Iznik tiles also forged instruments of immense power. The expansion of the Ottoman Empire was not just a story of strategy and faith, but of superior steel and thunderous firepower. Its armies marched with weapons that were the finest in the world, and the trade that supplied them was a matter of national survival. At the heart of this military-industrial complex was a legendary material, Damascus steel. This was not a single metal, but a masterful technique. Swordsmiths would take cakes of ultra-high-carbon Wootz steel, imported from India and Persia, and through a secret process of repeated heating, folding, and forging, create blades of breathtaking beauty and deadly efficiency. The resulting steel possessed a distinctive, watery pattern on its surface, like rippling silk, but its true value was its performance. A well-made Damascus blade was famously sharp, resilient, and flexible, able to parry another sword without chipping and slice through lesser armor. These swords became the prized sidearms of the empire's elite, especially the Janissaries, for whom a fine weapon was a symbol of their unmatched status. But the age of the sword was being eclipsed by a new, world-changing technology. The roar of the cannon became the true sound of Ottoman conquest. The empire did not just use gunpowder, it mastered its production and deployment on an industrial scale. Essential ingredients like saltpeter were sourced from as far away as India and Egypt, while vast quantities of copper and tin were mined internally to cast the colossal barrels of their siege guns. The foundries of Istanbul produced monstrous bombards that could hurl stone balls weighing hundreds of pounds, capable of reducing the tallest medieval walls to rubble. The most famous example was the cannon used by Mehmed II to breach the legendary walls of Constantinople itself, a feat that marked the end of one era and the beginning of another. This network of production and trade created a self-sustaining cycle of power. Control of trade routes funded the armies conquered new territories, and those new territories provided fresh resources to fuel further expansion. From the individual Janissary's polished sword to the earth-shaking roar of a siege cannon, every component was a link in an unbreakable chain of military dominance. The brilliant red of an Ottoman carpet was not just a color, it was a captured secret. While master weavers created the patterns, it was the empire's control over the very sources of color that gave their textiles an unmatchable vibrancy in the global marketplace. The most coveted hue of all was a deep celestial blue, derived from the indigo plant. This dye did not grow in Anatolia or the Balkans. It was cultivated in the distant fields of India and Southeast Asia, and its journey to the Ottoman looms was a testament to the merchants' global reach. Raw indigo was traded in hard, compacted cakes that, when processed through a complex fermentation vat, released one of the strongest and most color-fast dyes the world had ever known. Without it, the famous blue patterns on Iznik tiles and the rich backgrounds of courtly robes would have been impossible. Competing with this blue was a fiery red, drawn from the humble madder root. This plant thrived in the empire's own soil, particularly around the Aegean coast, making it a domestic source of immense wealth. The madder root's magic was unlocked by skilled dyers who understood how to manipulate minerals in the dye bath. By adding alum as a mordant, a substance that fixes the dye to the fiber, they could achieve a spectrum of reds, from a soft rose to a deep, blood-like crimson. But perhaps the most astonishing color was yellow, because its source was more valuable than gold by weight. Saffron, the delicate crimson threads hand-picked from the crocus flower, was a dye, a spice, and a perfume all in one. A single pound of true saffron required the harvest of tens of thousands of flowers, making it phenomenally expensive. To dye a sultan's silk kaftan with pure saffron was to drape him in liquid sunlight and proclaim his limitless riches. Controlling these dyes meant controlling the entire chain of luxury. An Ottoman merchant could import raw cotton or silk, have it woven in a state-regulated workshop, and then dye it with colors sourced from his own trade networks. This vertical integration, from field to finished fabric, ensured that no rival in Europe or Persia could easily replicate the depth and quality of Ottoman textiles. The empire did not just trade in colorful cloth, it traded in the very essence of light itself, bottled in vats and shipped across the world. The same vibrant dyes that colored the empire's cloth also scented its air, creating an invisible layer of opulence. The Ottoman world was not just a visual spectacle, it was a deeply aromatic one, where the trade in perfumes and incense defined the very atmosphere of power and piety. The most iconic of these scents was the Bulgarian rose, a flower transformed into liquid gold. In the Valley of the Roses, farmers would harvest the delicate petals at dawn, when their fragrance was most potent. It took thousands of pounds of petals, distilled in copper vats, to produce a single tiny vial of rose attar, an essential oil so concentrated it could perfume an entire room for weeks. This was the signature scent of the Ottoman court, used to anoint the skin, scent fountains, and infuse the wax of sealing documents. But the palette of aromas was vast and exotic. Musk, a pungent, animalistic substance scraped from the gland of a small Central Asian deer, provided a deep, sensual base note for countless perfumes. Then there was ambergris, a rare and mysterious treasure. This was not mined or harvested, but found, a waxy, gray substance that formed in the intestines of sperm whales and floated for years on the ocean currents before washing ashore. Its scent was complex, marine, and earthy, and it acted as a perfect fixative, making other perfumes last far longer on the skin. These ingredients were worth their weight in gold, traded along routes that stretched from the mountains of Bulgaria to the shores of the Arabian Sea. Their use was a carefully choreographed ritual. In the grand mosques, the air was sanctified with the smoke of frankincense, a resin from the Boswellia tree of Arabia. Its clean, woody aroma was believed to carry prayers heavenward and purify the space for worship. In the private hammams and lavish homes of the elite, personal grooming was an aromatic art. A nobleman would have his beard anointed with sandalwood oil, his robes stored in cedarwood chests with lumps of ambergris, and his reception halls filled with the smoke of aloes wood to impress and slightly intoxicate his guests. This trade in scent was the ultimate luxury, proving that the empire's wealth could be experienced not just with the eyes, but with every single breath. The scent of sandalwood and ambergris was often accompanied by the dry, clean smell of paper. Beneath the empire's visible wealth of silk and spice lay an equally vital trade in the written word, a commerce in knowledge that fueled its administrative machine and intellectual soul. Paper was the unsung infrastructure of the state. The sprawling Ottoman bureaucracy, with its meticulous records of taxes, laws, and military logistics, consumed vast quantities of it. While papermaking was an established craft within the empire, the sheer volume demanded by the Sultan's scribes required constant imports. Fine, durable paper arrived from the great production centers of the Islamic world, from places like Samarkand and Damascus, carried along the same overland routes that brought silk. This was not a glamorous trade, but it was essential. Every tax roll, every land deed, every imperial decree that governed the lives of millions was inscribed upon these imported sheets, making paper the literal parchment of power. Yet the trade in blank paper was eclipsed by the commerce in filled pages. Books were highly prized commodities, and the Grand Bazaar hosted specialized dealers in manuscripts who catered to a sophisticated and literate elite. The most sought-after texts were often scientific and intellectual works. A merchant might broker the sale of a lavishly illustrated Arabic medical encyclopedia, its pages detailing complex human anatomy, to a physician in the Sultan's court. A legal scholar from Cairo could acquire a rare philosophical treatise from Persia, its margins filled with generations of handwritten commentary. This free flow of ideas created a vibrant, interconnected culture of learning. Think of a young student in Istanbul, able to access the astronomical discoveries of a Central Asian scholar or the mathematical theories developed in Muslim Spain, all because a merchant saw value in transporting knowledge. These texts were more than objects, they were seeds. When they were traded, they carried with them entire systems of thought, cross-pollinating disciplines and advancing medicine, astronomy, and geography in ways that shaped the entire region. The empire's economic network, therefore, did not just move goods, it moved minds, proving that its most enduring legacy may have been written not in stone, but in ink. Yet the most carefully guarded texts were not always about science or law. Within the same bustling markets that traded in paper and ink, a far more enigmatic commerce unfolded, one that dealt not in knowledge, but in faith itself. This was the secretive world of relics and holy objects, a trade that moved in whispers, connecting the spiritual economies of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism through the neutral ground of the Ottoman merchant. Imagine a Venetian diplomat, a devout Catholic, discreetly purchasing what was claimed to be a fragment of the true cross from a Muslim trader in Istanbul, or a wealthy Jewish merchant from Thessaloniki acquiring a centuries-old Torah scroll, rescued from a distant community. The Ottomans, as masters of this crossroads, rarely placed theological value on these objects themselves. Instead, they recognized their immense economic value to others. They became the ultimate intermediaries in a spiritual marketplace, providing a safe conduit for artifacts that would have been politically explosive to trade elsewhere. A lock of hair attributed to the Prophet Muhammad, a piece of the mantle of a Jewish sage, or a vial of dust from a saint's tomb, all passed through their hands. The authenticity was often impossible to verify, but the belief in it was a currency just as real as gold. For the merchant, it was a simple calculation of supply and a fervent, endless demand. This trade required immense discretion, operating in the shadowy spaces between official doctrine and personal devotion. It revealed a pragmatic truth about the empire, that its commercial arteries could carry the most sacred and contested treasures of the world, all while remaining curiously neutral, profiting from faith without ever officially taking a side. The same ink that recorded imperial edicts also filled the prescription books of the empire's apothecaries. Behind the bustling spice stalls of the Grand Bazaar lay a quieter, more sober marketplace, its shelves lined with jars containing the very health of nations. This was the world of medicinal herbs and drugs, a trade that transformed the Ottoman Empire into a global pharmacy. The most potent and controversial substance in this trade was opium. Vast fields of the white poppy bloomed across Anatolia, their bulbs carefully scored to release a milky, addictive sap. Once dried, this raw opium was pressed into bricks and wrapped in poppy leaves, becoming one of the empire's most valuable exports. But its use was a careful balance. In the hands of a skilled physician, opium was a godsend, the most powerful painkiller available before modern anesthesia, used to soothe the agony of battlefield wounds or relentless diseases. Yet it was also a recreational drug, smoked in public coffeehouses, a source of relief and ruin that the state struggled to control. Alongside opium traveled a vast arsenal of other botanical cures. Rhubarb root, imported from distant China, was a celebrated remedy for digestive ailments. The bitter bark of the senna plant, sourced from Egypt, acted as a powerful laxative. Myrrh, a fragrant resin from Arabia, was not just an incense but a key ingredient in antiseptic salves for wounds. And then there was the rare and wonderful terra sigillata, or sealed earth. This was a fine clay from the island of Lemnos, stamped with an official seal and believed to be a universal antidote to poison. Its journey to the market was a public spectacle, overseen by an Ottoman official and a Christian priest, blending commerce and ceremony. The Ottomans did not merely trade these substances, they synthesized centuries of medical knowledge. Arabic translations of Galen and Hippocrates sat side by side with Persian herbals and new European anatomical texts in an apothecary's shop. A physician in Istanbul could compound a remedy using Indian pepper, Anatolian opium, and Egyptian senna, creating treatments sought by patients from Venice to Delhi. This vast network of healing made the Ottoman merchant more than a simple trader. He was a conduit for well-being, his cargo holds carrying not just wealth, but the promise of relief from suffering for millions. But the vast machinery of Ottoman commerce did not run on imperial decrees alone. It was powered by a diverse network of people, and some of its most vital cogs were the empire's own non-Muslim subjects. Armenian, Greek, and Jewish merchants did not just operate within this system. They were its essential connective tissue, their specialized networks stitching together a global economy that the state alone could never fully control. The Armenian merchants were perhaps the most far-reaching. Their trade diasporas created a web of trust and kinship that stretched from the very heart of Istanbul all the way to the distant markets of Mughal India. An Armenian merchant in Isfahan could arrange for a shipment of Persian silk with a simple letter of credit sent to his cousin in Istanbul, a transaction secured by family bonds that transcended borders. They became masters of the caravan trade, moving goods along the most arduous overland routes with a reliability that made them indispensable to the Ottoman treasury. Meanwhile, Greek merchants commanded the waves of the Aegean and the Mediterranean. With their deep-seated maritime knowledge and familial ties to ports in Venice, Marseille, and the Black Sea, they became the primary shippers for the empire. A Greek captain might load his vessel with Anatolian wheat in Smyrna, sail it to a hungry Marseille, and return with coveted European woolens, all while navigating the complex political waters between the Ottoman state and its European rivals. Their fleets were the circulatory system of the maritime trade, ensuring that goods did not just accumulate in Istanbul, but reached every corner of the basin. And then there were the Jewish traders, whose strength lay in their unparalleled connections across Europe. Often fleeing persecution in the West, they found a relative tolerance in the Ottoman lands that allowed their commercial talents to flourish. A Jewish merchant in Thessaloniki or Constantinople could correspond with trusted partners in Amsterdam, Livorno, and Vienna, creating a confidential information network that moved ahead of official news. This made them experts in finance and diplomacy, often serving as translators, tax farmers, and the personal bankers to powerful viziers. They dealt in everything from Balkan silver to European intelligence, their loyalty to the empire secured by the opportunities it provided. Together, these three groups formed a kind of shadow civil service of commerce. The Ottoman state, in its pragmatic wisdom, recognized that harnessing their skills was far more profitable than suppressing them. By granting them religious autonomy and property rights, the sultans unlocked a reservoir of human capital, turning the empire's incredible diversity into its greatest economic asset. The goods moved, the taxes were paid, and the empire grew rich, all because it knew that the keys to the treasury were often held by the most unexpected hands. That official network of trade, so carefully regulated and taxed, was shadowed by a far more dangerous current. Beyond the watchful eyes of the Sultan's customs agents, a parallel economy thrived on the open sea, one governed by cannon and cutlass rather than ledger and law. The warm waters of the Mediterranean were a hunting ground for corsairs, pirates who operated with a mixture of greed and tacit state approval. Among the most feared were the Barbary pirates, whose bases lined the North African coast in cities like Algiers and Tunis. Officially, these were Ottoman provinces, but their pirate fleets often acted with a fierce independence, creating a complex relationship with the empire. While the Sultan in Istanbul might publicly condemn their actions, these pirates served a brutal, unofficial purpose. They were a constant, low-level weapon against Christian Europe, disrupting rival shipping, capturing slaves, and forcing maritime powers to pay humiliating tributes for safe passage. A Spanish merchant ship laden with New World silver was just as much a target as a Venetian galley carrying fine glass. The most valuable contraband, however, was not what the pirates stole, but what they helped to move. Smuggling was an epidemic that bled revenue from the state. High-value, low-bulk goods were perfect for this shadow trade. Sacks of peppercorns, small bundles of raw silk, or finely crafted weapons could be easily hidden in a ship's false bottom or transferred under cover of darkness to avoid the Sultan's heavy customs duties. This illicit traffic in spices and textiles was a direct challenge to the empire's economic control, proving that for every merchant who paid his taxes, another was willing to risk everything for a greater profit. The most chilling cargo, of course, remained human beings. Corsairs specialized in raiding coastal villages from Italy to as far north as Iceland, capturing thousands of people to be sold in the slave markets of Algiers. This was not the state-sanctioned slave trade of the Istanbul markets, but a brutal, entrepreneurial form of human trafficking that fueled its own economy of ransom and forced labor. The line between a Barbary pirate and an Ottoman naval captain was often dangerously thin. Many corsairs held official letters of marque from local Ottoman governors, blurring the distinction between outlaw and privateer. In times of war, these pirate fleets could be swiftly incorporated into the imperial navy, their seasoned crews and fast ships becoming a formidable force. This shadow economy of piracy and smuggling was the dark twin of the Grand Bazaar, a reminder that the empire's commercial dominance was not just built on orderly ledgers, but also on the ever-present threat of the cannon's roar. These trade routes were the empire's vital arteries, and the caravans that trudged along them were its lifeblood. Picture a long line of camels moving through the stark, beautiful emptiness of the Anatolian plateau, their bells creating a soft, rhythmic music against the vast silence. This was the Overland Silk Road, the ancient web of trails connecting the empires of the Far East to the markets of Europe. But under the Ottomans, this was no longer a simple throughway. The empire became the new gatekeeper. Every bale of Chinese silk, every piece of Persian pottery, had to pass through their heavily fortified caravanserais. These were not just inns, but fortified trading posts spaced a day's journey apart, where merchants could find safety, food, and water for their animals under the protection of the Sultan's soldiers. From these secure hubs, the goods would funnel into the great trading cities like Bursa, the empire's legendary silk capital, where the raw material was transformed into finished luxury before continuing its journey west. Yet while the caravans moved at a camel's pace across the continents, a faster, more volatile trade raced across the waves. The maritime spice route was the empire's southern lifeline, a watery highway that brought the flavors of the East directly to its doorstep. Ships from India and the Moluccas, their hulls packed with peppercorns, cinnamon, and cloves, would catch the monsoon winds, aiming for two crucial Ottoman-controlled gates, the port of Aden guarding the entrance to the Red Sea and Basra at the head of the Persian Gulf. Once these spices were unloaded onto Ottoman docks, they entered a new network of distribution, carried by smaller vessels up the Red Sea to cities like Suez and Alexandria, or transported overland to the waiting merchants of the Mediterranean. The third critical artery pulsed to the north, in the chilly waters of the Black Sea. This was the empire's private lake, a source of unparalleled strategic wealth. From its southern and eastern shores came the timber that built the Ottoman navy. Massive oak logs floated down rivers to the shipyards. From the fertile lands of Crimea and the Danube Delta came shiploads of grain, leather, and the sturdy Slavic slaves that powered much of the empire's manual labor. Control of the Black Sea meant the Ottomans could feed their capital, build their fleet, and secure their northern frontier, all from one enclosed, protected basin. These three systems, the slow caravan, the swift ship, and the protected sea, did not operate in isolation. They were interconnected, creating a commercial web of stunning complexity. A merchant in Venice craving Chinese silk might have his order fulfilled through a chain that began with a caravan from Samarkand, moved through the customs house in Bursa, was shipped across the Black Sea, and then carried on a Greek-owned vessel through the Dardanelles. Every single link in that chain was watched, taxed, and protected by the Ottoman state. This was the true genius of their commercial empire. They did not need to produce every single good or even own every ship. They simply needed to control the points where all the routes converged, collecting a toll on the world's desires and turning geography into a permanent source of power. This relentless river of commerce did not just fill the bazaars. It built the very stone and mortar of the empire, financing a golden age whose architectural wonders still define the skyline of Istanbul today. The Süleymaniye Mosque, that breathtaking masterpiece perched above the Golden Horn, was not funded by magic or sheer imperial will. Its soaring domes and elegant minarets were paid for with the profits from 1,000 spice caravans, 1,000,000 sacks of grain, and the endless tariffs collected on silk and coffee. The state treasury, known as the Hazine-i Emir, was the direct beneficiary of this commercial machine. Every merchant who paid a customs duty at a port, every trader who was taxed upon entering a caravanserai, was contributing a small stone to the foundation of a mosque, a bridge, or an aqueduct. This was the social contract of Ottoman power. The state provided the security and infrastructure, the legendary Pax Ottomana that allowed trade to flourish, and in return, the trade funded the state's grandeur and its military might. The empire did not just conquer its way to greatness, it purchased it, brick by brick, with the wealth generated in its markets. But this wealth was not hoarded solely in the palace. The same system that built the Süleymaniye Mosque also created a new force in Ottoman society, a class of individuals whose influence began to rival that of the ancient military aristocracy. These were the wealthy merchants, men who could amass fortunes so vast they became lenders to the state itself. Imagine a powerful vizier needing to finance a military campaign. He might not go to the Sultan, but to a Jewish banker in Thessaloniki whose network extended to Amsterdam, or to an Armenian merchant in Istanbul who could mobilize the capital of his entire trade diaspora. These merchants lived in mansions that paled only in comparison to the palace. They endowed their own libraries and public baths, and their daughters married into the highest ranks of the bureaucratic elite. Their economic power slowly translated into political soft power, creating a delicate and often tense dance with the Sultan's court. The state needed their capital and their global networks, but it also feared their independence. This led to a recurring, brutal pattern. A sultan, facing a budget shortfall or perceiving a threat, might suddenly confiscate the entire fortune of a supremely wealthy merchant on a fabricated charge. One day, a man was the financier of the empire, the next, he was a pauper in a dungeon. This constant tension reveals the ultimate truth about the Ottoman economic engine. It was a spectacular, self-perpetuating cycle of creation and control, where the very merchants who built the empire could also be consumed by it, all to keep the wheels of commerce and the state turning forever. The merchant's ledger, once filled with endless profits, slowly began to show a different story. This commercial empire, seemingly unshakable, faced a slow erosion from three relentless directions. The first blow came not from a rival army, but from a single, daring voyage. In 1498, the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama successfully sailed around the southern tip of Africa, opening a direct sea route from Europe to the riches of India and the Spice Islands. This was a catastrophic bypass of the entire Ottoman system. Why would a Venetian merchant pay heavy Ottoman tolls for spices that arrived in Istanbul overland, when a Portuguese caravel could deliver the same pepper directly to Lisbon at a fraction of the cost? The old Silk Road, the empire's eastern lifeline, began to wither as European ships increasingly sailed around it, siphoning off the lucrative spice trade that had filled the Sultan's treasury for centuries. Simultaneously, a new economic power was rising in the West. The Atlantic economies, fueled by the staggering wealth of the Americas, began to outpace the Ottomans. Silver mined from Spanish colonies in Potosi flooded the global market, causing massive inflation that the Ottoman economy with its fixed tax systems and traditional mining output, struggled to absorb. More importantly, these new Atlantic powers were building a different kind of economy, one based on global colonial empires and mercantilist policies that deliberately excluded the Ottomans. Nations like England and the Netherlands established their own trading companies, like the British East India Company, which created closed commercial loops from Asian producer to European consumer, entirely bypassing the traditional Middle Eastern intermediaries. The Ottoman Empire was no longer the indispensable middleman. It was being pushed to the sidelines of a new global order it had not helped to create. Yet the most damaging factors were internal. The very system that had brought such immense success became its own cage. The state's heavy hand, which once provided security and stability, gradually ossified into a bureaucracy resistant to innovation. Guilds, which had ensured quality for generations, now fiercely protected their traditional methods, stifling the technological advances and industrial changes that were sweeping through Europe. While European ships were being redesigned for ocean travel and their workshops were embracing new machinery, Ottoman production methods remained largely unchanged. The empire was resting on the laurels of its past successes, its commercial policies and military technologies falling behind. The result was a slow but irreversible decline. The caravans grew smaller, the customs revenues shrank, and the vibrant hum of the Grand Bazaar, while still present, began to lose its position as the undisputed center of the world economy. The empire that had once dictated the terms of global commerce found itself struggling to keep up, its legendary trade networks fading from a roar to a whisper. The whispers of those merchants still echo in the markets of modern Turkey, their legacy not locked in history books, but simmering in a small copper pot. Turkish coffee remains the empire's most enduring cultural export, a daily ritual that connects millions from Istanbul to Sarajevo. The method is unchanged, grinding the beans to a fine powder, boiling the coffee with water and sugar in a sezv, and serving the thick, potent brew with its signature foam. This is not just a drink, it is a social institution, a reason to pause and connect. And in 2013, it earned a place on the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List, a global recognition of its living history. The very spices that once built fortunes still define the region's cuisine. Walk through the Mısır Sarsaçı, the Spice Bazaar in Istanbul, and you are surrounded by the same vibrant colors and intoxicating scents that would have overwhelmed a merchant 5 centuries ago. Mountains of crimson sumac, golden turmeric, and dark red chili flakes are not mere souvenirs for tourists. They are the essential ingredients for a culinary tradition that stretches from the Balkans to the Levant. The demand for these flavors sustains local farmers and a thriving domestic market, proving that some commodities never lose their fundamental value. Even the dazzling art of Iznik ceramics has been resurrected. The secret techniques were nearly lost to time, but dedicated artisans have spent decades painstakingly recreating the formulas for that brilliant white base and the iconic coral red. Today, workshops in Iznik and Kudahir produce stunning tiles and tableware that adorn modern hotels and homes, a direct visual link to the empire's golden age. These are not cheap replicas, but high-end artisanal products sought by collectors worldwide, a testament to an aesthetic that continues to captivate. The goods that once flowed through the empire's veins did not vanish. They simply became woven into the cultural DNA of a region, ensuring that the heartbeat of the Ottoman Bazaar can still be felt with every sip of coffee, every fragrant meal, and every glance at a radiant, hand-painted tile. From the common grain to the rarest gem, Ottoman merchants truly traded in the very essence of power, culture, and life itself. Their sprawling networks wove together continents, creating an economic tapestry so vast that for centuries, the bazaar truly felt like the center of the world. It is a legacy that challenges our modern understanding of commerce. This was not merely an exchange of goods, but a flow of ideas, technologies, and tastes that shaped civilizations from Vienna to Delhi. The hum of the Grand Bazaar was the sound of the world turning, a symphony of commerce conducted by the sultans, but played by a million unseen hands. So, as the final ledger closes on this journey, we are left to wonder, which item from this astonishing list surprised you the most? Was it the coffee that brewed a social revolution, the leather that bound Europe's knowledge, or the human cost that shadowed all this prosperity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed unraveling this historical mystery, be sure to subscribe for our next exploration into the forgotten corners of the past.